was only 23 and dying. On a shattered battlefield littered with broken swords and rising smoke, Patricia lies bleeding out, staring at the empty sky as a cruel truth crushes her. Hard work means nothing. She fought, she endured. She gave everything. And this is her reward. Alone, unloved, forgotten, blood fills her lungs as her vision fades. So this is how it ends. But just as darkness begins to swallow her whole, footsteps. Desperate, fast, panic. Theo, the silver-haired soldier she ordered to escape, comes running back through the smoke, screaming for his captain. He drops beside her, shaking, begging her not to die. Patricia can barely speak, reminding him she told him to flee, yet he's here, crying, breathing. For her, all her life she believed she was a burden, that her existence meant nothing. But as she watches Theo weep over her dying body for the first time, a terrifying question pierces through the pain. What if her life was never worthless at all? Her thoughts drift back to the beginning. She calls herself a cursed child, born at the cost of her mother's life. In their kingdom, noble rank is tied directly to magical power, and nobles typically marry with an equal status so the mother can survive bearing a powerful child. Her father defied tradition, marrying a baron's daughter for love despite the warnings. Her older brother was born safely, his magic weak enough not to harm her. But when Patricia was conceived, her mother grew frailer by the day. Urged repeatedly to end the pregnancy and save herself, her mother refused. She chose to give birth, and died because of it. From that moment on, Patricia became the living reminder of tragedy. Her father lost the woman he loved, her brother lost the mother he adored. Their grief twisted into resentment directed at her. Ignored by her family and even the servants, she grew up isolated, convinced she deserved it. With no affection and no place at home, she chose the only path left. She joined the military at 13. Ironically, the immense magic that had killed her mother became her greatest weapon. She excelled, climbed the ranks, and eventually became a decorated captain. But her most fateful decision was taking in Theo, the third prince born to a low-born concubine. When they first met, he was arrogant, bitter, and angry at being unloved. Patricia recognized herself in him. Through strict discipline and quiet guidance, she helped him mature. He grew stronger, steadier, eventually becoming her trusted second in command. Their rise threatened the queen, who believed a concubine's son should remain powerless. To remove him, she sent both Patricia and Theo to the deadly front lines, intending for them not to return. Now, back on the battlefield, Theo clings to Patricia, sobbing uncontrollably. In a trembling voice, he confesses he loves her. The words shock her, but also bring peace. She realizes she does not regret taking the fatal blow meant for him. There are worse ways to die. With her final strength, she touches his face and orders him to live, no matter what, and one day make those responsible pay. As Theo screams her name in despair, her vision dims. Instead of cold darkness, she feels herself wrapped in a warm, gentle light as everything fades away. As the warm light engulfs her, Patricia wonders if it is her magic dispersing, or simply death claiming her at last. Either way, she believes her story has ended, but instead of vanishing, she opens her eyes. She wakes in a lavish room, no longer a dying captain but a small child. Shock floods her as she realizes she is sitting on her father's lap while he gently feeds her sweets, his voice warm and affectionate. Her older brother stands nearby, proudly showing her beautiful dresses he picked just for her. They dote on her, calling her cute, urging her to eat more. It is everything she once yearned for. A loving family, fine clothes, warmth she never received in her first life. Inside, however, she is in turmoil. With the mind of a 23-year-old trapped in a child's body, she forces herself to act innocent and cheerful. Smiling nonstop makes her cheeks ache. Pretending to be young is exhausting. She cannot comprehend why the cold father who once ignored her now treats her like treasure. Then comes an even greater shock. Theo is king. In this new timeline, he has already ascended the throne. Yet despite the years that have passed, his devotion remains unchanged, stronger, even obsessive. He kneels before her and declares she will stay by his side forever, boldly asking her to become his queen. Patricia is flustered and bewildered. She had hoped this second life would be a fresh start, free from the tragedies of the past. She realizes this is her second life, triggered by excessive regeneration magic at the moment of her death. Somehow, that power regressed her body to childhood while preserving her memories. Those memories remain painfully clear. In her original timeline, her birth was treated as a crime. Her mother, Priscilla, the beloved son of the Alvin family, died giving birth to her. Though she never asked to be born at such a cost, Patricia became the living symbol of that loss. Immediately after birth, she was exiled to the annex and raised in isolation. There, a maid devoted to her late mother abused her relentlessly, calling her a monster who stole Priscilla's life. The woman claimed her father had ordered that he never see her again. And heartbreakingly, it was true. No matter how Patricia suffered, he ignored her existence. Once, unable to endure it anymore, she ran to him, hoping he might protect her if he knew the truth. Instead, he met her with a cold gaze and ordered a guard to drag her back to the annex. That rejection shattered her final hope. From then on, she stopped wishing to be loved. When beaten, she secretly used her magic to numb the pain and endured in silence. The only thing that kept her alive was her tutor's promise that at 13 she could join the military. On her 13th birthday, the anniversary of her mother's death, she went to see her father one last time. Annoyed, he mockingly asked if she expected a celebration. Calmly, she declared she was enlisting. As she turned to leave, knowing it would be their final meeting, she smiled faintly. In that moment, her resemblance to Priscilla stunned him pale as if he had seen a ghost. Patricia doesn't stop at declaring her departure. She turns on her father with years of buried fury. She tells him to stop acting like the victim when he was the one who chose to bring her into this world despite knowing the risks. He knew the pregnancy could kill her mother, yet he allowed it. He stood by and watched. The words leave him stunned and speechless. She reveals that the hidden books she found in the annex changed her. If not for them, she would still be desperately chasing his love and her brother's approval. From those scriptures, she learned a simple truth: parents are meant to love their children. Forcing a smile identical to the one in her mother's portrait, she accuses him of shutting her away, ignoring her cries, and turning a blind eye to her wounds. Then she delivers the final blow. Does he truly believe he will see her mother again in the afterlife? The woman who died protecting her child would never welcome a man who neglected that same child. With that, Patricia leaves the Alvin estate wondering if he finally understands the depth of her pain. The military becomes her escape. There, noble birth means nothing, strength and merit rule. Many sideline nobles serve and women contribute openly. When her magic is tested, the evaluation orb reacts violently to her overwhelming power, shocking the instructors. She is immediately assigned to the Magic Knights. For the first time, the magic that killed her mother brings her something positive. Military life is harsh, but compared to being ignored at home, it is bearable. 8 relentless years later, she rises to captain of the Magic Knight Division. Then comes a political surprise. The Queen personally requests that the third prince, Theobald Christian, be assigned to her as a recruit. Though royalty, he is an illegitimate child born to a maid who died giving birth to him, unable to withstand his magic, hidden away and isolated ever since. His file mirrors Patricia's own tragedy. Worse, his immense magic is uncontrollable, essentially a death sentence in the Magic Knights. Realizing he has been sent to her to quietly disappear, she feels a surge of empathy. He is only 14, another unwanted child shaped by loss. She resolves to take him in, train him, and make sure he survives. When Theobald arrives, he is cold, arrogant, and defensive. Patricia introduces herself as his captain, reminding herself that although she outranks him, he is still royalty. She intends to remain professional, but his dismissive attitude pushes her patience to its limit. Determined to establish authority and prevent him from self-destructing, she physically grabs his face, forcing him to meet her gaze. In that charged moment, their turbulent partnership begins. He blushes, stammering, asking what she's doing, only for her soft expression to vanish as she suddenly pinches his cheeks hard. He yelps in pain and drops to his knees, clutching his face and demanding an explanation. Unbothered, she coolly scolds his foul language toward a superior. When he indignantly reminds her that he is royalty, she waves it off and mockingly suggests he run to the king and complain that his captain is being mean. The jab silences him instantly. She presses further, pointing out that he's only here because he didn't dare defy the royal order. But as she studies him, she realizes he isn't angry, he's lonely. In this kingdom, only the queen's biological children matter. Illegitimate royals are ignored, sometimes quietly erased. Theo likely lives each day fearing he'll be next. He might even suspect she's working with the queen to eliminate him. Yet if this assignment came from the royal command, he has nowhere else to go. Stepping closer, Patricia reminds him that in the military, orders are absolute. As his captain, his life is now in her hands. Nervous, he asks what she wants him to do. She flashes a bright grin and immediately assigns 20 laps around the training field. His shock only grows when she adds 100 wooden sword swings, then 100 sit-ups and push-ups. If he doesn't start now, she warns it'll only get worse. She treats him like any other recruit. No special treatment for royalty. When he tries to slack off or run, she drags him back with magic. She forces him to complete every drill, counting down until he finishes the last rep. By the end, he collapses, gasping, calling her and the others insane monsters. Calmly, she tells him stamina is essential for survival in the Magic Knights. Endurance comes first. As the sun sets, she watches him with quiet resolve. She'll make him strong enough that no one can ever discard him again. Extending her hand, she promises he can grow stronger here. She shares how she was once mocked for being a girl in the Knights, and how she shut everyone up by beating them all. Strength silences doubt. She jokes that training clears the mind. Muscles solve everything. Theo calls her a muscle, brain noble with a terrible mindset, but she laughs it off, even joking that those same muscles inspired her to consider trashing her family estate before leaving. The absurd image makes him burst into genuine laughter for the first time. As they walk, he hesitates, then asks her to stop calling him Your Highness. Just call him Theo. After all, she's his captain. Patricia narrows her eyes at Theo's casual tone and coolly asks if that's any way to address his captain. He immediately stiffens, panics, and blurts out a sincere apology, straightening up as he formally promises to do his best, addressing her properly as Captain Patricia. Amused by his sudden obedience, she smiles and pats his head in approval. The simple gesture leaves him flustered and red-faced, completely disarmed. Time passes, and though Theo still grumbles now and then, he trains with fierce determination. His physical skills improve rapidly, but magic remains his weakness. Despite possessing raw power nearly equal to Patricia's, he can barely infuse his sword with a faint trace of energy. Patricia reminds him that magic alone doesn't define a knight, yet controlling it would change everything. She suggests they identify which element suits him best to unlock his potential. Theo abruptly shifts the mood, boldly declaring that today will be the day he finally defeats her. Smirking, Patricia accepts. Their sparring sessions become routine, Theo charging forward with stubborn resolve, Patricia effortlessly countering. As blades clash, she finds herself wondering if this is what having a younger brother feels like. He's honest, relentless, and keeps challenging her no matter how many times he loses. It's oddly endearing. After one match, she bids him goodnight and walks away. Moments later, another soldier hesitantly asks Theo if he's truly comfortable taking orders from a woman. Theo shuts him down instantly, asking if the man thinks he could actually beat her. The soldier falters. Theo firmly explains that the military values strength, not gender or status. Patricia earned her rank through merit. If anyone objects, they're free to challenge her. Though he warns she'd probably enjoy it. The soldier quickly backs off. Theo openly praises her strength, kindness, and leadership, insisting he has zero complaints. Unbeknownst to him, Patricia overhears everything from around the corner. She can't help but think how cheeky he's become. Somewhere along the way, he started caring deeply for her, and she began seeing him as family. Those years in the military become the happiest of her life. Until the royal summons arrives. Called to her office, Patricia receives a direct order from the king. Her entire squad is to deploy to the front lines. She's stunned. Though tensions simmer along the border with the kingdom of Alicia, there's no official war. Worse, the order demands they cross the border and strike first. An act that guarantees retaliation. It's not a mission. It's a death sentence. Gathering her squad, she delivers the news. Most are noble sons who never expected real combat unless the kingdom faced true crisis. Outrage spreads as she explains the reckless objective, to wipe out Alicia's border troops and push into their territory. When they demand to know why their unit was chosen, she suppresses her dread and repeats the only answer she has: it's the king's command. They leave in 3 days. The mission is confidential. She tells them to spend their remaining time with loved ones. Shock and despair fill the room. Later that night, Patricia sits alone beneath the moonlight, realizing she has no one to say goodbye to. No family. No friends. Her life feels painfully empty. Then she hears a familiar voice behind her. Captain. Theo's voice trembles as he approaches Patricia under the moonlight, asking to speak. His hands shake when he sits beside her, and the question bursts out of him, whether this so-called mission is happening because of him. Patricia meets his eyes and realizes the cruel truth, denying it would be a lie, but confirming it would shatter him. Before she can answer, he lowers his gaze and whispers, the fear clawing at him. They're being sent out there to die, aren't they? She doesn't need to say the queen's name. They both know. The queen, mother of the crown prince, has decided Theo has grown too strong. A lowborn royal with rising power is a threat. If he dies on the battlefield, it will be framed as a noble sacrifice, a tragic martyrdom to ignite war. Patricia understands the scheme perfectly. They are pawns meant to be discarded. Instead of feeding his despair, she grips his shoulder and tells him firmly they will survive. They will outlive every person who tried to throw them away. Theo startles at her conviction, then half jokes that if he outlives all his royal relatives, who already hate him, he would inherit the throne by default. Patricia laughs at the absurdity and admits she wouldn't mind seeing him become king. It's treasonous even to joke about it, but in her heart she believes someone who understands suffering would rule far better than those born into privilege. Then the battlefield proves how non-V-hope can be. With barely enough troops, they cross the border and fight desperately, but the operation collapses almost immediately. They are overwhelmed. Patricia realizes the truth with sickening clarity. They were never meant to win. They were bait. In the chaos, she senses a wind bullet slicing through the air, from the direction of their supposed allies. For a split second she considers a misfire, but the trajectory is precise. It's aimed directly at Theo. The queen has ensured he won't leave alive. Without hesitation, Patricia launches herself forward using magic propulsion. She pushes her body past its limits, praying she'll reach him in time. She does. Just as the attack strikes, the impact tears through her, blood spraying as she grits her teeth against the agony. Theo watches in horror as she collapses. He catches her, begging her not to die. It's the first time she's ever seen him cry. Through fading vision, she feels no regret. If this is how she dies, protecting him, it isn't the worst end. She orders him to live. No matter what, he must survive and one day make their enemies regret what they've done. As her consciousness dims, that single wish fills her heart: let her dear subordinate live. Then something changes. Theo's expression steadies. He gently covers her eyes and tells her it's okay, that he'll think of something. A secret surfaces. Even Patricia never knew Theo can use healing magic. In their kingdom, healing is scorned. Combat magic symbolizes courage and royal dignity. Healing is dismissed as weak, unfit for a prince. A royal born with healing affinity is considered disgraceful, so Theo hid it all his life. But now, cradling his dying captain in the middle of a slaughter engineered by his own family, he no longer cares about pride or reputation. He can do this, and he will. Theo doesn't hesitate. Cradling Patricia's broken body, he activates the highest grade regenerative spell he knows, one forbidden to someone of his rank and reputation. He channels every drop of magic he has ever saved, vowing to heal her injuries even if the backlash kills him. Light explodes across the battlefield, a blinding pillar that swallows the carnage whole. I'll heal these injuries, even if it kills me. I'm not letting you die, Captain. When soldiers later comb through the devastation, they find nothing but corpses. The unit of elite magic knights is annihilated. The invasion of Alicia's border was a disaster from the start. They mutter bitterly about the queen's cruelty and the king's spineless obedience. Surely the third prince died with them. What a waste of talent. Then someone shouts, they found a survivor. It's Theo, alive. He stands among the bodies in a daze, eyes hollow as medics rush to him. Shock grips the soldiers. How did the third prince survive something like this? And why is he standing in the heart of the slaughter? Far away from that blood-soaked field, Patricia opens her eyes. She's in a soft bed. Strange children crowd around her, relieved she's awake. Confusion crashes over her. Her voice sounds high and unfamiliar. Her hands are tiny. Her body is small. Panic rises as she demands a mirror. The reflection staring back at her is that of a young child. She's regressed. Physically no older than 7. A nun enters, relieved she's conscious after 3 days. The army found her collapsed near the border and brought her to Estelle orphanage. Patricia remembers everything, taking the wind bullet meant for Theo, the agony, his tears. She died, so why is she alive? And what about Theo? Was he safe? When asked about family, she answers honestly. Her father and brother likely haven't spared her a thought in years. She has no one. The nun gently pats her head, assuring her she's safe now. The simple affection breaks her. No one has ever done that for her before. She's 24 inside, a former captain who commanded men into battle, yet that small gesture makes her eyes sting. Maybe she always wanted something so simple. Then reality settles in. Her entire unit was wiped out, erased. If she's alive, she's a liability, a witness, a political inconvenience. She needs a new identity, something close enough to respond to instinctively, yet distant from the name that died on the battlefield. Patty? From that day on, she becomes Patty. When she asks about the war, the nuns gently deflect. Children shouldn't worry about such things. Over the next year, Patty adapts to orphanage life. Though she looks 7, her mind remains that of an adult. She helps the sisters care for younger children, organizes chores, soothes crying toddlers. The nuns begin to rely on her maturity. The war eventually reaches a ceasefire, not through ceremony, just the absence of gunfire. But peace changes little. The orphanage is poor, stretched thin. Food is scarce. More children arrive constantly, victims of war and poverty. Many never even make it to orphanages. They die in the streets. The orphanage is beyond capacity. At this rate, it won't survive. And Patty, trapped in a child's body, feels powerless to fix it. Then one day, children rush toward her, breathless with excitement. Patty, did you hear? The director's got a visitor. The orphanage is alive with excited whispers as the children crowd near the windows, buzzing about the arrival of a wealthy noble. They dream that he has come to donate generously so they can finally enjoy a proper feast. Their innocent hopes fill the air with anticipation. From a distance, however, Patricia feels her blood run cold. The moment she sees the visitor, she recognizes him instantly. Her father, the Duke of Alvin. She has not seen him since her previous life ended, and the sight of him standing there leaves her stunned. Memories of neglect and emotional distance resurface all at once. She cannot believe that the man who barely acknowledged her existence is now standing at the orphanage. The Duke's gaze soon settles on her, and he questions the director about the girl. The nun explains that Patricia is a recently arrived war orphan, praising her kindness and sense of responsibility. She often cares for the younger children and never complains. Hearing this, Patricia panics internally, desperately searching for a way to avoid him. She tries to slip away unnoticed, hoping he will not recognize her. But before she can escape, the director calls her over, urging her not to be rude. With dread pooling in her chest, Patricia is forced to stand before the father she wants nothing to do with. She reassures herself that he barely looked at her when she was 7 in her first life, so there is no way he could recognize her now. Yet his intense stare unsettles her. For a fleeting moment, she wonders if he sees her as a ghost of the daughter he once lost. When he suddenly reaches toward her, she instinctively flinches. He falls silent, his expression tightening, before turning back to the director with a firm decision. Without hesitation, the Duke announces that he wishes to adopt Patricia. The director is taken aback and suggests he consider younger children as well, but he refuses to reconsider. Patricia is outraged. Adoption may be a dream for most orphans, but returning to the Alvin estate is her worst nightmare. She protests, insisting that she is needed at the orphanage to care for the little ones. She would rather stay than relive the pain of her former home. The Duke counters her refusal with a powerful offer. If he adopts her, he will ensure the orphanage receives proper and continuous funding. Both Patricia and the director are stunned. Looking around at the orphanage's crumbling walls and limited supplies, Patricia realizes the children are already at their limit. Swallowing her pride, she asks for a guarantee that the children will be fed and supported. The Duke agrees, promising to personally oversee the funds. Though suspicious of his motives, Patricia accepts the deal for the sake of the other children. She resolves to secure every possible benefit for them, even if it means sacrificing her own comfort. The adoption is arranged quickly, and before long she bids farewell to the orphans and boards a carriage back to the estate she once swore never to enter again. Upon arrival, she remains wary, convinced he adopted her only because she resembles his dead daughter. She prepares herself to use her remaining magic to escape if necessary. But instead of cold indifference, the Duke suddenly pulls her into a trembling embrace. Sobbing uncontrollably, Patricia freezes in disbelief. In her previous life, he had never once shown her affection. Never hugged her, never comforted her. Shaken and confused, she realizes her new life has already begun with unexpected twists. And as if that were not enough, another shocking reunion looms ahead. A silver-haired figure in a royal red cloak named Theo, whose reappearance promises even more upheaval in the days to come. Patty stands frozen before a grand portrait of her former self, depicted proudly in her knight's uniform. The sight leaves her shaken. Beside it hang paintings of the Duke's late wife and daughter. The Duke quietly remarks on how beautiful they were, gazing at the images with visible sorrow. But instead of sympathy, Patty feels anger rising within her. To her, his grief feels hollow, like a staged performance for a daughter he neglected while she was alive. She believes he is mourning now only because it is too late to admit his failures. Unable to hold back, Patty bluntly asks if he adopted her simply because she resembles his deceased daughter. The Duke admits it without hesitation. He claims he could not bear to leave her in such a cruel environment. The irony stings. Patty remembers clearly that the Alvin estate had once been far crueler to her than the orphanage ever was. Yet the Duke places a gentle hand on her shoulder and declares that from now on, she is his daughter, promising to make her happy for the rest of her life. His words confuse her more than they comfort her. He leads her to an extravagant dining hall prepared with a lavish feast. Patty feels overwhelmed by the sheer abundance of food after growing used to small, rationed meals. Though frustration still lingers in her heart, she cannot deny the small flicker of warmth she feels when he looks at her with genuine concern and tells her to eat at her own pace. Their quiet moment is interrupted when her brother, David, enters the room. The Duke introduces Patty as David's new stepsister. Internally, she reflects that she has technically been his sister for 24 years already. Expecting resentment, she braces herself under David's intense gaze. Instead, he surprises her with polite composure, introducing himself kindly. Patty bows respectfully, promising not to cause trouble, but both men tell her there is no need for such formality. Their unexpected gentleness leaves her unsettled. Soon after, they take her on an extravagant shopping trip, purchasing an overwhelming number of dresses and accessories. David even offers thoughtful suggestions, saying softer colors would suit her better. Patty protests that she cannot accept so much, but they insist she is now truly a lady of the Alvin family. Though she has always held that title in name, this is the first time it feels real. As she settles into the manor, she notices dramatic changes. The abusive servants from her past are gone, replaced by staff who treat her with kindness and respect. The oppressive atmosphere she once endured has completely disappeared. Meals are now shared as a family, and they genuinely listen to her opinions. David corrects her when she addresses him formally, insisting she call him Big Brother, while the Duke encourages her to call him Father. Each small gesture chips away at her lingering distrust. They shower her with gifts and even hire a tutor. Because Patty already possesses the knowledge from her previous life, she excels effortlessly, earning praise as a genius. Instead of suspicion, her intelligence only brings her more affection. Gradually, the dream she once longed for as a lonely child begins to unfold before her. Though she initially questions their motives, their kindness remains steady over time. One day, she secretly overhears David asking the Duke whether Patty could truly not be his biological daughter, given her uncanny resemblance to Patricia. The Duke solemnly replies that he only ever loved David's mother and would never have had a child with another woman. Patty silently fumes at the Duke's careless speculation that her resemblance to Patricia might come from some forgotten relative. Internally, she wants to scream that she has been his daughter for 24 years. Yet she can only stand there as he stares at the portrait of his late child and wonders aloud if perhaps God sent Patty as a chance for their family to atone. Her gaze shifts to the painting of her mother, Priscilla, the woman who died protecting her child. As she listens from hiding, the Duke confesses to David that he ignored Patricia's suffering because she reminded him too painfully of his late wife. David in turn admits that he had been foolish and sinful as a child. The Duke laments that if he had only asked how the servants treated Patricia, he would have uncovered the abuse immediately. Now, however, it is too late. She is gone, and nothing can undo the past. Patty is stunned by the revelation. Her father had never ordered the servants to mistreat her. The cruelty she endured had happened behind his back. She finally understands why the old staff were dismissed after her death. They must have discovered the truth too late. The Duke then admits he is trying to make amends for losing Patricia by pouring his affection into Patty instead. Hearing this shatters something inside her. All the years she believed her family hated her, yet they had been trapped in their own grief and guilt. Realizing this brings unexpected tears and an unfamiliar warmth. For the first time, she feels certain that she was never truly unloved. She begins to wonder if her regression was a divine gift, A second chance granted out of pity. Perhaps this new life, free from the battlefield and the sword, is meant to be lived in peace and study instead of war. Over the next few years, she grows into her role as a proper noble daughter, surrounded by steady affection. Still, she secretly continues training her magic, unwilling to abandon that part of herself. When Patty turns 12, the family receives a royal summons to the capital. During the carriage ride, the Duke and David discuss the new king, a ruthless ruler who executed his own father and siblings to secure the throne. Yet despite his brutality, the people seem to favor him over the former king, and the city appears more vibrant. The Duke promises to take Patty for a walk after their audience, but her thoughts are elsewhere. She is anxious about the summons, yet hopeful she might learn something about Theo's fate. As a child, she believes she might get away with asking bold questions. At last, the Alvin family enters the throne room and bows deeply. When ordered to raise her head, Patty looks up and freezes. Sitting upon the throne, crowned and draped in royal furs, is Theo. Her former subordinate is now the king. Patty was said to be overwhelmed with emotion the moment she saw Theo alive, nearly calling out his name before stopping herself. She realized that in her current body as a 12-year-old girl, such familiarity toward the king could cost her life. Even so, she felt immense relief knowing he had survived. From a distance, she observed that he was no longer the boy she remembered but the new monarch, one who had secured the throne through the blood of his own father and siblings. As her father and brother described him as merciless and cold-hearted toward anyone who refused loyalty, Patty reportedly recalled a memory from her previous life when a younger Theo had once joked that if he outlived his siblings, he would become king. She had laughed, encouraged him, and even patted his head. Now seeing the ruthless ruler before her, she was said to wonder whether her careless encouragement had contributed to the path he ultimately chose. During the coronation, Count Elliot Alvin formally congratulated Theo. The king acknowledged him and remarked that Captain Patricia had once been of great help to him. Patty was described as inwardly flinching at this, remembering how harshly she had trained him in the past. The Duke appeared shaken at the mention of his late daughter, and Patty realized that Theo likely knew the truth about the suffering she had endured under the Alvin family. She understood that this knowledge was probably the root of his hostility toward them. Theo was then said to fix his gaze on Patty, causing her to fear that he might somehow recognize her true identity. When he approached and inquired about her, the Duke explained that she was a war orphan adopted due to her resemblance to Patricia. Patty reportedly reminded herself to be cautious with every word. Determined to survive and live her new life, she decided to swallow her pride and behave like an innocent child. When asked her name and age, she cheerfully introduced herself as Patty, aged 12, and claimed that her dream was to become a lovely bride. Her exaggerated innocence surprised her father and brother. Though others trembled under the king's overwhelming magical presence, Patty did not feel the same fear, as she still remembered the gentle boy he once was. Theo then declared that Patty would serve as a lady in waiting at the royal palace. The Duke protested that she was too young, but Theo coldly reminded him that Patricia had been sent to the battlefield at 13 without hesitation. He questioned why the Duke now showed concern for an adopted child when he had not spared his own daughter. Patty was said to realize that this was not kindness but retaliation. She understood that she was effectively being taken as a hostage, a means to test the Alvin family's loyalty. Although she once claimed indifference toward her father and brother, Patty admitted to herself that being loved by them in this life had made her happy. She concluded that resisting Theo could bring harm upon them. Accepting her role, she resolved to work at the palace to protect her family and preserve her new life. With that decision, she bid farewell to her peaceful noble days and prepared herself for the demanding responsibilities awaiting her, knowing that serving as a lady in waiting would be the most critical and difficult task she had yet faced. Patty reflects that one by one, the other court ladies had refused the duty of attending to the king, leaving her as the only person willing, or perhaps brave enough, to handle the task. As a result, she alone was responsible for waking him each morning. She would boldly enter the royal chambers without waiting for permission, fully aware that such access to the king's private quarters was an outrageous privilege. Pulling back the curtains to let the sunlight flood the room, she would cheerfully announce that morning had come and urge His Majesty to wake up. Theo would usually sit up groggily, clearly weak in the mornings. It was said that most attendants were far too frightened to wake him, which often delayed important affairs of state. Patty, however, was completely used to the routine. In her previous life, she had dragged him out of bed countless times when he overslept, and so she treated him now with the same casual familiarity. When he drowsily commented on her endless energy, she would reply that she had always been a morning person. While she prepared water for him, Theo was described as gently patting her head and remarking that she truly did not fear him. Noticing the chapped condition of her hands, he took them and healed them instantly with magic. Patty was once again amazed by his skill. It was explained that as a prince with no aptitude for offensive magic, Theo had endured deep contempt. Healing and support magic were belittled as inferior and feminine roles, so he had hidden his talent for years. Eventually, he realized that healing magic, which manipulates the human body, could also be used to destroy. By refining it to an extreme degree, he gained the ability to stop a human heart itself. That terrifying application of his rare ability was the reason the kingdom now feared him. Despite this reputation, Patty believed he would never kill without reason. Unlike the former king, who executed people on a whim, Theo was fundamentally kind. Because she alone did not tremble in his presence and spoke to him casually, the palace staff gradually assigned her nearly all duties related to him, ruining her earlier hope that palace work would be easy and relaxed. She often worked alongside Roland, the king's close aide, who thanked her for taking care of his majesty and occasionally offered to help carry her things. Patty politely declined, insisting she enjoyed her work. Internally, she reflected that serving at the palace was actually easier than pretending to be younger and more naïve at home for her doting father and brother. Roland regarded her as a diligent and good girl. Her thoughts drifted back to her first day at the palace 6 months earlier. The head court lady had led her to a luxurious VIP room located closest to the king's quarters, explaining that she would serve as His Majesty's exclusive lady-in-waiting. Patty had been stunned by the enormous responsibility placed on a newcomer. While unpacking, she discovered an entire wardrobe filled with expensive dresses prepared at the king's request. Deeply confused, she wondered whether such treatment resembled that of a royal mistress rather than a mere attendant, especially considering she was only 12 years old. When told to prepare for her first audience with the king, Patty had awkwardly asked the staff to drop the honorific lady. Fearing misunderstandings, she eventually chose a beautiful teal dress that fit her perfectly, still puzzled as to why she was being provided with brand new, high-quality clothing. Upon formally entering the king's magnificent office, she introduced herself as Patty Alvin, newly assigned to serve him. Theo instructed her to raise her head and welcomed her, addressing her as Lady Alvin. He then informed her that from that day forward, his office would also serve as her workplace, as he intended for her to assist him in his royal duties alongside Roland. In that moment, Patty realized that her role at the palace would be far more significant, and far more complicated, than she had ever anticipated. Roland warmly welcomed Patty as his new co-worker, only to immediately drop a towering stack of documents onto her desk. Patty was internally horrified, questioning whether anyone was truly sane for assigning a 12-year-old to assist the king with such an overwhelming workload. Theo calmly confirmed that his office was now her official workplace, and that she was expected to assist both him and Roland. Patty panicked, knowing she had no experience with paperwork. She even recalled how, in the past, a younger Theo had once struggled with similar burdens, and how she had felt guilty watching him shoulder responsibilities beyond his years. The idea of someone like her assisting the king now felt utterly impossible. Roland studied Patty closely, remarking on how striking her resemblance to someone else was, only for Theo to curtly silence him. Introducing himself as Roland Alvarez, third son of a Marquis family, he casually suggested they drop excessive formalities and invited her to call him Roland. Patty politely agreed, though she remained somewhat formal. When Roland teased Theo, joking that the king could simply call her Patty if he wished, Theo turned away stiffly. Though his expression remained stoic, he appeared subtly flustered. Patty respectfully offered that His Majesty could call her Patty as well. After confirming she was certain, Theo finally said her name aloud. Patty immediately noticed his ears turning bright red. A childhood habit she remembered well, Roland observed the exchange with quiet amusement. Claiming seniority as her co-worker, Roland announced he would give Patty a tour of the palace, leaving Theo behind to finish the documents. Though uncertain whether this was appropriate, Patty followed him. He showed her the small assembly hall, used for intimate meetings, and the grand assembly hall, reserved for large gatherings of nobles and officials. Overwhelmed by the sheer size of the palace and the responsibility of memorizing everything, Patty felt the weight of her new position. When they reached the palace garden, filled with breathtaking roses, she was momentarily captivated by its beauty. There, Roland asked whether she knew why she had been specifically chosen as the king's exclusive lady-in-waiting. He revealed that Theo once had a first love. Patty felt an unexpected pang of loneliness, hurt that he had never mentioned such a person in their past life. Roland then disclosed that the first love was none other than her own step-sister, Lady Patricia Alvin. Patty was stunned, realizing he was referring to her former identity. Roland explained that Patricia had been Theo's superior officer in the military and had cared for him deeply. Patty's resemblance to her was undeniable. He went on to recount how Patricia had died in battle while protecting her commander, and how her body was never recovered. According to the Frontier Marquis army that rescued Theo, she had been lost on the battlefield. Patty realized that the same Marquis must have saved Theo and later left her at the orphanage. Roland further explained that the Frontier Marquis, who despised the former queen's corrupt family, had secretly raised Theo in the frontier lands to prepare him to claim the throne. 6 months earlier, with public support and the Marquis' backing, Theo had successfully usurped the throne. Reflecting on this chain of events, Patty recognized the extraordinary twist of fate that brought her back to the Alvin household. Adopted solely because she resembled the late Lady Patricia, unaware that she herself had once lived as that very person. In the palace garden, Roland continued his explanation, remarking that the entire situation was rather sad. He suggested that Count Alvin had likely adopted Patty simply because she resembled his late daughter, even giving her a similar name as though he wanted a replacement doll. Now, Roland added, the king seemed to want her for a similar reason. Because she looked like his first love. He bluntly called it distasteful and twisted that she kept being desired solely due to her resemblance to someone else. Patty lowered her gaze, silently acknowledging the painful truth in his words. Composing herself, she directly asked Roland what he truly wanted from her. Internally, she suspected he felt threatened by the king's special treatment toward her. Setting aside the so-called first love, which she insisted had never existed in the way people imagined, she reminded herself that she was merely an orphan taken in as a stand-in, with no known lineage. Calmly but firmly, she assured Roland that she had no ambition to become queen and had only come to the palace to work. If he was dissatisfied with how she was being treated, she told him he should voice his concerns directly to the king, who would surely listen to his trusted aide. Roland was briefly stunned before laughing and offering a light apology, telling her not to be upset. Though Patty felt it lacked sincerity, she stated she was not angry and understood his concerns. She reaffirmed her intention to serve faithfully as a lady, in waiting and to be of help to His Majesty. Roland smiled, said he was counting on her, and concluded the tour, advising her to consult the head lady, in waiting if needed. After he left, Patty reflected on how wary the palace staff seemed about her presence. The thought that she might be seen as a potential queen candidate sent her into quiet panic. The idea that Theo could be raising a child who resembled his first love in order to marry her someday felt absurd and disturbing. She attempted to rationalize it as political strategy. Perhaps a tragic romance narrative would soften the image of a king known for overthrowing his own blood relatives. Weeks passed and Patty became fully immersed in palace life. Because she was the only one unafraid of Theo and the only person toward whom he showed clear warmth, the staff gradually pushed most of his personal duties onto her. Delivering documents, serving tea, and waking him in the mornings. One late night, as she brought refreshments to his office, she noticed that even Roland no longer tried to restrict her closeness. Despite rumors, she had never once been approached romantically, which she found logical given that she was only 12. Entering the office, she gently urged Theo to rest, noting that he worked harder than anyone else in the palace. When he replied that his magic constantly healed his body unless he faced instant death, she pointed out that healing did not erase fatigue. Theo chuckled, remarking that it was the first time someone had called his feared power convenient, before telling her to prioritize her own sleep. As she turned to leave, vivid memories from her previous life overwhelmed her. She saw a younger Theo eagerly asking to spar, shyly gifting her a lace handkerchief, and finally weeping over her dying body, confessing that he liked her. Frozen in shock, Patty realized that his feelings had not been mere admiration, they had been love. Looking at Theo in the present, she understood the truth at last, and his gentle gaze confirmed it. Patty was left reeling after realizing she had cornered herself when Theo calmly confirmed that what he felt was truly love. She blushed furiously, while Theo looked away with a heavy, somber expression. He described himself as a hopeless man who had survived only by sacrificing the woman he loved. At the most crucial moment, he said, he had failed to properly cast a regeneration spell. Hearing this, Patty suddenly grasped the truth. Theo had used that spell on her. She concluded that his immense and highly compatible healing magic must have rejuvenated her entire body, restoring her cells to such an extent that she returned to childhood instead of dying. For a brief moment, she considered confessing that she was actually Patricia. However, the thought of revealing herself, especially after her overly cheerful declarations about becoming a cute bride, felt mortifying. The embarrassment alone seemed unbearable. Meanwhile, Theo continued speaking fondly of the late Patricia, praising her beauty, kindness, strength, and willpower, describing her almost like a goddess. Patty found the glorification excessive and awkward, inwardly protesting the dramatic praise. Theo then clarified that he had no intention of treating Patty as a substitute for Patricia. He simply wanted her to grow up healthy and happy by his side. Strangely, Patty felt a faint sting of disappointment at not being seen romantically, though she quickly masked it with a bright smile and promised to grow strong and meet his expectations. Reflecting on everything Theo had lost, she resolved to work hard for his sake and wished for his happiness as well. 6 months later, Patty was buried under paperwork, still struggling with administrative tasks. Roland offered to take over, and she gratefully accepted, admitting that her strengths lay more in physical skill than desk work. Through working closely with him, she came to appreciate Roland's remarkable efficiency and competence. Though easygoing and occasionally teasing, he was indispensable to the kingdom and had stood by Theo as both friend and retainer long before the coronation. Patty felt reassured knowing Theo had someone so reliable at his side. When Patty mentioned her upcoming 3-day break, granted as part of her arrangement with House Alvin due to her young age, Theo visibly grew sulky. She found his reaction oddly endearing yet guilt-inducing, imagining him like a lonely puppy reluctant to let her go. Roland asked about her plans, and she shared that she would mostly rest at home and stroll through town on one of the days. After finishing her tasks and celebrating the approved documents, she cheerfully bid them farewell, though Theo remained quietly displeased. On her way out, Patty reassured a nervous maid, who would temporarily take over her duties, insisting that the king was kind and would not harm innocent people. She even joked that she had survived half a year of speaking bluntly without consequence. If she could help others see Theo's true nature, she felt it was worthwhile. That night, Patty returned to the Alvin estate. Her father and brother rushed out to greet her, scolding the palace for making a child work so late while enveloping her in a tight embrace. Though part of her still felt slightly detached from this life, she could not deny how deeply happy it made her to be cared for so sincerely. Patty reflects on her fresh start, quietly wondering whether she will ever truly accept this life rebuilt from nothing. Before her doubts linger, her family gently shifts the mood, inviting her to dinner and asking her to share stories about her time working at the palace. Meanwhile, in the royal palace dining room, King Theo sits across from Roland at a candlelit table, visibly irritated. He bluntly questions why he must dine face to face with him again. Roland playfully insists he is only keeping the king company out of kindness, assuming Theo must be lonely without Patty. A nearby maid observes their exchange and begins to think Patty was right. The king may not be so frightening after all. Roland continues teasing, accusing Theo of sulking over Patty's absence, which Theo firmly denies. Then Roland proposes a bold solution. If Theo misses her that much, he should go see her, secretly in disguise. Theo falls silent, clearly considering the idea. The Duke of Alvin and Patricia's brother stand exhausted beside the carriage, faces drawn as they prepare to leave for the clan meeting. The Duke broods over the injustice of working while Patricia enjoys her vacation. The brother half seriously suggests skipping it, but the Duke reminds him the head of the main family and his son are discussing succession. Absence is impossible. Duty wins. Patricia sees them off warmly. The Duke lingers, still openly attached, while her brother follows him into the carriage. She waves until they disappear down the road. The moment they are gone, her smile fades. Relief settles over her. Their affection suffocates her at times. Finally alone, she exhales and decides to head out as well. Her maid brightens instantly and rushes to prepare her. Soon Patricia stands dressed in a soft pink gown. The maids admire her openly, voices filled with awe. Patricia watches them quietly, thinking how different things are now. The current servants are kind. Her father must have replaced the old ones as atonement. Perhaps, in some distant past, her cries truly reached him. In town, her maid asks where she wishes to go. Patricia confirms she has a destination. Her father and brother would rather bury her in jewels and dresses, but that is not what she wants. What her body craves is different. Today, she will buy it herself with her own wages. She stops before a heavy stone building. The maid stiffens in shock at the sight of the weapon shop and questions her silently. Patricia orders her to wait outside. The maid hesitates but obeys. Inside, iron and steel line the walls. A burly blacksmith eyes her with a scowl and dismisses her as a child in the wrong place. Patricia smiles faintly. She heard the same words in her past life. Calmly, she requests a light short sword with high magical conductivity. The specificity startles him. She reaches for a blade on the counter. The weight drags her small frame down and she stumbles. The blacksmith reacts with smug confirmation. Then light explodes from the sword. Magic surges through the steel, bright and steady. Patricia realizes the truth with clarity. Her muscles vanished when her body de-aged, but her magic did not weaken at all. The blacksmith recoils, fear flashing across his face. Recognition dawns. He knows that power. He demands to know why she is so small. She tries to brush it off, but he refuses to be fooled. He has forged her swords for years. Her magical signature is unmistakable. She drops the pretense. Yes, it is her. She accidentally turned into a child. They move to speak privately. He tells her she vanished for 5 years. He believed she had quit knighthood or died. Seeing her again, alive, though transformed, shakes him. Still, he is relieved she returned to buy one of his blades. Patricia mourns the loss of the body she trained relentlessly. Years of effort erased. The blacksmith laughs and tells her to build it again. Simple. Start over. His bluntness steadies her. A second chance feels like a dream, yet restarting is brutal. The days she endured, the strength she earned through grit and pain, all gone. Everything lost but her life. The blacksmith produces a short sword suited to her request. Light, balanced, highly conductive, perfect for her current frame. She grips it and feels it respond. She asks about Theo's sword from the past. He confirms he still forges the king's blades but avoids advertising it to escape extra work. The shop's weapons are top quality regardless. Patricia feels a quiet warmth knowing Theo still carries steel tied to their shared history. He tells her to return if she outgrows the blade. She thanks him and asks him to keep her identity secret. He assures her he can keep quiet. Outside, her maid rushes to her in worry. Patricia asks her to hide the sword from her father and brother. The maid agrees, though she pleads with her not to do anything reckless again. Patricia's mood lifts abruptly. She suggests they go look at something cute next. They walk through town together. Then a voice calls her old nickname. Patricia freezes. She turns slowly. A man stands there who looks exactly like Theo, but his hair is dark, not silver. He greets her in a flat monotone and calls it coincidence. The delivery makes her nervous. She forces a laugh and asks what His Majesty is doing here. He replies that he is no king at the moment, only a wandering traveler. She immediately notes that no traveler dresses that neatly and suspects he is undercover. He explains that a ruler must witness the lives of the people with his own eyes. When she asks if he came alone, he confirms it. For now, he is a civilian. She should call him Theo. The name feels absurd in her mind. He is far too important now. Her hand brushes the short sword hidden in her bag. If he had a guard, she would have left. But he is alone. As long as no one realizes who he is still the same good person at heart. Her maid trembles behind her. Patricia adjusts awkwardly and settles on calling him Lord Theo with visible reluctance. He smiles, radiant, and the sight unsettles her more than she expects. She asks why he brought no guard. He answers coldly that guards would only die in vain. He claims he could stop the heart of every person around him if he wished. The deliberate recklessness irritates her. He hides it well, but she sees through him. As a former commander, she recognizes the pain buried beneath his composure. She warns him there are many ways to kill without being present. He counters that poison will not work on him and that killing him would be extremely difficult. She internally rebukes him, recalling the lessons she once drilled into him about overconfidence. In close combat he is unbeatable, but only in close combat. If she can think of ways to kill him, enemies certainly can too. She decides they will travel together. Muscle is gone, but her magic remains. It is better than nothing. When he asks if she intends to protect him, she confirms it. At minimum, she can serve as his shield. His expression darkens. He tells her she does not need to do that. He looks away and states firmly that he does not want anyone else dying for his sake. The words strike her. Beneath the cold exterior is unmistakable kindness. Not wanting others to suffer for him is its own form of mercy. She feels relief knowing the king he became is this kind of man. She drops the argument and suggests they go. Without thinking, she grabs his arm the way she used to. Panic flashes through her at the instinct. He simply takes her hand and agrees. They walk through the capital. Patricia notices him carefully checking prices at every stall, studying the market firsthand. The dedication impresses her. It reminds her of the past when they walked like this while he was still a prince. He had never tried street food before and had been quietly surprised by the taste. He asks if she wants to eat something. She asks for something sweet. He mentions a fruit stand in the park. She is startled by how informed he is and wonders if he sneaks out often. They arrive at the park he calls the most beautiful place in the capital. She agrees it is lovely, but her instincts sharpen. Unlike the main streets, it is quiet. Too quiet. Perfect for an ambush. He begins explaining that the park was built a century ago to celebrate a king's coronation 5 generations prior. Then she feels it. A violent spike of magic tears through the air. Her head snaps upward. Above them, a massive sphere of crackling purple energy forms in the sky, dense and unstable. An immediate threat. The purple sphere tears through the sky and drops straight toward them. Patricia calculates instantly. A direct hit will kill them both. In this child's body she cannot fully block it. The limitation burns her pride. Still, she moves. Even if she cannot win, she can shield. She jumps in front of Theo, bracing to take the impact. The light intensifies. Theo does not move in panic. He raises a hand, a slight flick of his fingers. The massive blast vanishes as if erased from existence. Silence. Patricia stares stunned. The scale of control leaves her breathless. She remembers warning him long ago not to copy reckless sacrifices. He looks down at her and states calmly that he is not weak enough to hide behind a child. She must not underestimate him. Her body had moved on instinct. Anyone in danger, she reacts. This time it was him, but frustration surges. In this small frame, she is not good enough. Tears spill before she can stop them. Theo panics at once. He asks her not to cry. She wipes her eyes, embarrassed. She was only worried. Just as he worries about her, she cannot help worrying about him. Perhaps she is becoming emotionally childish too. She thanks him. She could do nothing. He apologizes for saying too much and for startling her. When she asks about the attack, he calls it the usual. His life is always targeted. He apologizes for involving her. Her focus sharpens. How did he erase that blast without a spell? No incantation, no structure. He answers simply. He struck it head on with his own mana. Shock hits her harder than the attack. Mana normally requires incantations or signs to shape it. He crushed a fully formed spell with raw control alone. Only he could do that. The realization settles heavily. He is no longer the subordinate she once commanded. He is stronger, more grown. She had still thought of him as someone she needed to protect. She asks if he is all right. He admits he is low on remaining mana. They should return to the palace. He will send her home in her family carriage. She worries about another attack. He mentions he had wanted to take her to a boutique and a cafe. She tells him they will go next time. He questions whether there will be one. She promises there will. His smile softens at that. The next day at the palace, she reflects that escaping her father and brother's doting concern is harder than any battlefield. She is greeted by Lord Roland. They discuss the failed assassination. The culprit escaped. No proof, but suspicion points to the former Queen Dowager. Patricia remembers how that woman once tried to send Theo and the entire Magic Knight unit to the front lines to be wiped out. She nearly died because of it. Theo despises her. The Dowager likely hates him for taking everything from her. After the former king was killed, she fled. Nearly a year has passed since the rebellion. Her whereabouts remain unknown. Patricia considers the situation. The Dowager lost both her sons. What can she do now? She would need shelter, likely her birth family, the Duke's house. More importantly, someone informed her. Someone near the center. Someone who knew about Theo's covert trip. Someone who understood his powers well enough to plan around them. Roland asks if she has any suspect. Patricia meets Roland's eyes and asks if he is the traitor. He recoils in exaggerated shock, accusing her of being cruel and questioning how she could suspect him. She smiles immediately and claims it was a joke. He has no motive. Roland pouts and says he would rather hear that she trusts him. Inside, she calculates. Roland could have killed Theo anytime without hiring assassins. He would not need such methods. As heir of the prestigious Alvarez Marquisate and guaranteed right hand to Theo, siding with the former Queen Dowager would gain him nothing. Roland remarks that Theo has made many enemies. There is no shortage of people who want him dead. Then he mentions a rumor a surviving royal family member is hidden somewhere, backed by the former Queen Dowager and rebel remnants. Patricia stiffens. She demands to know how he learned that. Roland answers lightly that his family has always leaned toward the anti-government faction. Loyalty to him follows strength. He announces he is leaving. While she was away, he was trapped in the palace. Today he is going home regardless. She tells him to rest well and says she will see him tomorrow. She enters the king's chamber. Behind her, Roland watches with a lingering gaze. For her age, she is sharp. Almost animalistic intuition, perhaps born from a humble background. A quiet conclusion settles in him. Nothing can be changed now. Inside, Theo stands in his silver-haired form again. She greets him and thanks him for the leave. He tells her to return to her room and rest properly since her vacation is not over. The contradiction irritates her. He was the one sneaking out to see her. She plays the lonely child, saying she came because she thought he might be alone. He stiffens, visibly flustered despite trying to deny it. Some things never change. She decides to leave for the day and promises to work hard tomorrow. He tells her to rest well. That night, alone in her room, she studies her short sword. Helplessness gnaws at her. When Theo was attacked, she could do nothing. She had wanted a peaceful childhood in this life, to live quietly in a 7-year-old body, but constant protection feels hollow. She needs stamina muscle. She begins military drills, trusting her body's old memory. Minutes later, exhaustion crushes her. Limbs tremble, breath ragged, no strength left. Still, she refuses to quit. She sets a regimen: 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups. The next morning, she reports to Theo's room. Every step hurts. Even knocking sends pain through her arms. She enters and finds him asleep, hugging his pillow. The sight reminds her of the army days when he clung to bunkmates and was scolded. She wakes him cheerfully. He notices her stiff gait and remarks that she walks like a newborn fawn. He offers to heal her. Panic spikes through her. If he heals her, all that soreness, proof of effort, will vanish. She refuses quickly. She explains she trained because she felt pathetic and wants to grow strong enough to protect him. The pain is necessary. It means growth. He stares at her. Then he laughs. She bristles, telling him he does not need to laugh so hard. He explains someone once told him the exact same words. Understanding hits her. It was her. She grumbles internally. In the end, she is always the one he laughs at. Theo looks at Patricia with a softened gaze and admits he could not help falling for her. The words hit her like another blow. Her mind spirals in disbelief, wondering if he prefers muscle-headed types. Her body is already exhausted before noon. Muscles screaming, and now this confession leaves her even more unsteady. Back in her maid uniform, she greets the staff normally, hiding the soreness. Fatigue drags at her limbs, but her resolve hardens. She will train no matter what. She begins monitoring her meals carefully, eating with discipline. The piece shatters mid-bite. A sharp taste. A violent cough. Her utensils clatter to the floor. Blood splashes onto her hands. Poison. Shock floods her. Why target her? Her body collapses before she finds the answer. Roland storms into a high-level meeting and delivers the news. Patricia has been poisoned. She collapsed, vomiting blood. Theo rises at once. His eyes burn red. He leaves the chamber without hesitation. Patricia drifts between darkness and faint awareness. A familiar gentle voice calls her name, desperate, refusing to let her slip away. She feels death approaching again. Fear tightens her chest. She does not want to die. If she dies, Theo will cry. Her father and brother will cry. The thought is new and fragile. A blessing to know she will be mourned. When she wakes, the agony in her throat is gone. Theo sits beside her bed, face drawn and sleepless. She learns she was unconscious for 3 days. Even after detoxification and healing magic, she did not awaken. Gratitude overwhelms her. She thanks him, calling him Lord Theo. He blames himself. If he had not kept her so close, she would not have been targeted. She tells him she stays by her own will. She would never resent him. The poisoning is kept secret from her father and brother to prevent chaos. Officially, she simply rested in her room. She realizes how much those two love her now. The change still feels unreal. Roland visits later. He notes that Theo barely slept for 3 days. Official duties were minimized. The king remained at her bedside. Roland remarks that Theo has grown more human because of her. He describes the king plainly. A monster in power. Injuries heal automatically under overwhelming magic. No one can approach him. He can kill with a glance. He holds nothing precious, so he hesitates at nothing. Fear of him runs deep through the palace. Patricia listens but does not waver. Yes, Theo killed relatives and crushed those who opposed him to secure the throne. But he also ended pointless wars. He saved countless lives. She knows he's not a monster. Roland admits that once he feared being killed at any moment. Lately, he finds the king almost cute. Even so, instinctive fear remains. Facing someone who can take a life instantly will always be terrifying. Patricia considers Roland's words and reaches a quiet conclusion. A reign built on fear will not last. It will collapse one day, way, just like the previous king's rule. Her expression brightens abruptly. The solution is simple. Theo needs an image strategy. Roland stares at her, stunned that this is her takeaway after nearly dying from poison. Even now, she remains relentlessly positive. She asks him directly if he has any ideas to change how the public sees the king. Roland suggests the simplest approach. She should stay by Theo's side more often. If people see a young girl unafraid of him, their fear may ease. She turns the idea over in her mind. When someone powerful shows tenderness towards something small and weak, it softens perception. Like a rough man helping a rain-soaked stray puppy. The image alone changes hearts. Excitement builds. She declares Roland a genius. Roland admits he would personally be pleased if she became someone truly precious to the king. Patricia clenches her fist with determination. She will do it. She will show everyone how close they are. How harmless. How human. For Theo's sake. That night, candlelight flickers in the king's study. A maid enters quietly to check on him. Theo sits solemn and still. Without hesitation, he orders Patricia's room to be moved. The maid asks where. Next to his. Shock flashes across her face. The chamber he names is traditionally reserved for the queen. Theo's gaze remains cold and unwavering.